Get started, y'all. Pay attention up here, all right? All right. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. How we feeling? Feeling good? Y'all feeling good? All right. How was our week?
Really good. It was
Good?
good to me.
What you do this week?
School. I had really fun in school. Had fun in school. It was
Okay.
really good.
Yeah. What y'all do in school? Besides learn, you're supposed to be. That's the number one thing. But what else? What else was going on?
We do activities like we would color, arts and crafts.
Okay. Okay.
We made basketball team in my school.
Oh, you made the basketball team? Congratulations. That's good. That's good. That's good. Lay, how you doing? You all right? All right. That's good. That's good. All right, so we're going to get off into this children lesson, okay? We're going to talk about Chanukah today. Hanukkah or Hanukkah, okay? What y'all know about that? What? Yeah, it's a feast. All right. That's what you about to add. What you was about to say. We really just gonna get off into the Maccabees. We're just gonna talk about the story that led to the rededication. Yeah, the books of the Maccabees. That story. You familiar with that? All right, we're gonna talk about it. All right, we're gonna talk about what led to the rededication of the temple. But first, we're gonna go into these 10 Commandments. All right. All right. So you shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods. What's considered another god? Hold on. I got you.
Which one?
Talking about this one right here. What can be considered another god? Phone. A person.
Money.
Money.
Video games.
Video games, right? What else? Of course. All right. Can you name something that's not on this picture?
A car.
Car. Pretty much anything that you put your effort into serving. Well, we're going to get into that. Anything that you put your effort into serving, and the effort you put in is more than what you would put into serving the Most High, right? All right, so, yep, all of those is right. If you putting, not that they're another God in itself, because it's okay to have a car. It's okay to play games sometimes. It's just that when you do that more than you willing to serve the Most High, that's when it becomes your God, okay? So that's that. You shall not make for yourself an idol. All right, you shall not make for yourself an idol. Name something. Now, they're still talking about idolatry or the worship of another God. But now we're talking about something that a man makes with his hands. So name some things.
Statue.
Right?
Car statue.
Like a Buddha statue. Y'all familiar with that? Buddha statue? Some of y'all, anyway?
In the middle.
What about y'all? It's all right. It's all right. So statue, it's more talking about a statue, right? And so the rest of this law says, you shall not make for yourself any graven image, anything that's in the likeness of anything in the heaven above, or in the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth, right? So you can't make a fish and bow down, and then it says, neither shall you bow down to it. So you can't make a fish and bow down to it. You can't make an animal like a lion and bow down to it, right? You can't make a sun, the image of a sun in the skies and bow down to it like that, right? So not anything, and that includes people too. You can't make the image of a person and bow down to it, all right? All right, like the children of Israel coming into, when they was during the Exodus in the wilderness, Aaron made a golden calf and caused the people to bow down to it, right? He took their gold that they had, carved up a golden image, and they was bowing down and worshiping this golden calf, all right? Jeroboam is a king. Remember we was talking about our king, our northern and southern kingdom. He made 2 golden calves because he didn't want the northern kingdoms to go down and worship in Jerusalem during the feast days. And he caused them to worship these 2 golden calves in northern Israel. All right, you had your hand up? All right. You shall not misuse the name of Yahuwah your Elohim. How can we misuse the Most High's name? Shiloh.
Swearing to Yah when it's really not gonna cut you.
Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Then you're gonna swear that you're gonna do something you don't do.
Right. So not keeping your word. Right. Right. Yeah. All those are right. All those are right. An example of that would be somebody like Peter. Peter, I mentioned this before. What happened with Peter, if you can remember? Don't remember? Okay. So Peter, what he did was, you know that Peter was one of the main, say that again? All right, I'm gonna get to it. All right. That's cute. So Peter, what he did was, he was walking with the Messiah, and once the Mashiach had gotten taken and he was getting taken to the priest, and Peter followed him, but people started to recognize he was one of the disciples, and he swore. After a while, he got fed up, and he swore with an oath, it says, that he did not know our master, the Mashiach, right? And he was lying, though. So he swore and made an oath. And when you make an oath, you usually make an oath in the Most High's name. And so that's what he did, and that's where he swore falsely. He used the Most High's name in vain right here, right? Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. How can we keep the Sabbath holy? What you got? Hold on. You can watch VeggieTales. What else? But nah.
Respecting him.
Yeah.
Read.
You can pray. What else? Say that again. I don't know. But the fact that he's trying, I like it. Okay. What you was about to say? Come to congregate. What you had? What you got? Read the Bible. Yep. All of those are good. All of those. So remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. All of those are good. You can pray. Of course, come and congregate. Study your word. You know, you get rest. All of those are right. All right. Watch. You want to watch shows that pertain to the stories in the Bible. All right. Honor your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. How can we honor our father and mother? Do what they say. Right. What you got? Keep them with a good name. Keep them with a good name. How can we keep them with a good name? That's one way, yep. To your friends, like if you have a falling out, you don't go to your friends and slander your mother and father, right? Right, what else? Not right. Well, yeah. Of course, that's a way to honor your father and mother, yeah. But how can we specifically keep them with a good name? How about being on our best behavior? Being on our best behavior, right? So showing other people that we may know that we have been taught something at home. Of course, doing what they tell you to do. That's a way to honor them. But I'm saying specifically, when we're talking about keeping them with a good name, you want to be on your best behavior when you're not around them. All right, that show that has something to do, right, that's something to do, yeah. That's something to do with what they taught you, absolutely, yeah. But you want to show that while you out and about amongst other people that you when you're not around your parents. All right? You shall not murder. You shall not murder. All right? What you got? Nah. Killing somebody for no reason. What if they try to kill you and that's self-defense, right? And you have to defend yourself. and they die in the process, that's self-defense. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit adultery. What is adultery for the man? Here, you explain. As a matter of fact, no, you had your hand up first. You explain. What is adultery for a man?
Man steps out of his marriage and like sleep with another woman that's married.
That is married? Yeah. Yep, that's one way. What's another way? Sheila.
If a woman steps out with a man with another man.
All right, so you just answered my second question. So that is adultery for a woman. That's good though. But for what's the other way a man can commit adultery?
When a man is married and he divorces his wife for no reason, and another woman is married, and another woman,
And he marries another woman.
yeah.
Yep. So that's the other way. All right. So you shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. Is it okay for her to steal if she's poor?
No.
Right. What should she do? She should ask. Right? We don't got to spend a lot of time there. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. What does the word neighbor mean? Family. Neighbor means family. And here, like it shows like next door neighbors, but we know for a fact that neighbor means family. In this case, you have the owner of the house. He is trying to figure out who's telling the truth between these two. He's bearing false witness on this man. He has a bat in his hand, and he probably hit a ball through this window and is afraid of what's going to happen if this man finds out he did it, right? So he's afraid of the consequences. And so he's lying on him. Now, in ancient Israel, if that was to happen, if somebody got caught bearing false witness, the same punishment that they sought to give to a person, they will receive that punishment. So they will be put to death. Right? So you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And finally, you shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. Now, what does the word covet mean?
Covet means when somebody has something better than yours, but they have the same thing, but it's better than yours, so you try to take it or like kill them for it.
Covet leads to those things. What you got, Daquan? Show me what covet.
Covet means to lust after someone's possession.
So it starts.
I keep forgetting lust.
Yeah, that's what it means. So covet means to lust. Now, what you said after that was right because what it leads to. Right, go ahead.
Something like stealing something that's not yours.
Well, coveting it can lead to stealing, right? So if you like right here in this picture, she's lusting after this possession. She's lusting after this possession. But first, what you was about to say? Oh, okay. She's lusting after this possession, and what it's going to lead to is her making a plan to go and steal this possession or get this possession by either stealing it, so she gonna come with some fake paperwork saying that it's hers, or she can go potentially murder the owner of this, right? So she commit murder.
Or she can steal.
Right, that's what I said. She could steal. So how would she do it though? She come with some fake paperwork and say that it's hers. So she could steal it, or she could, just straight take the car and break into the car and steal it herself. Steal items out the house. So she could steal, she can murder, and potentially some way get these possessions. Depending on, it leads to even going against your own family, even if it's your mother and father. So check this out. What if your mother and father owned this and they was doing really well, they worked a long time, and because you figure you can't get ahead, you come with a plan to steal their possessions. So now what you're doing is you're not only stealing their possessions, but you're dishonoring your mother and father in that situation, right? And then ultimately, what it leads to is, having another God, because those things become your God. You're willing to kill and steal just to get some items, just to fulfill your flesh. So now you're committing idolatry, right? So we got to control that lust. All right, so let's talk about Hanukkah. Let me get my Bible out.
Hot chocolate.
Huh?
Hot chocolate.
No, we almost done. I'm not even gonna be long. So we're just gonna talk about Hanukkah. Let me do something real quick. I ain't even gonna be long at all. Here. Give me 1 second. All right. So, we're talking about the rededication of the temple. And, I'm just going to go into the story. So, when we talk about, as you all, or some of you may know, we've been in the midst of the week of Hanukkah, right? And, the story, what you got?
What happened to Peter?
Peter, when he did, we talking about when he made that vow, or he made that bad oath. What happened was he, after he denied the Messiah 3 times, the rooster had sounded, and he realized what the Messiah had told him before that time came, which was, "You'll deny me 3 times." All right, because at this point, when he's denying the people, when he's denying the Mashiach in front of the people, it's not that he don't love the Messiah, but it's just that he's not ready to deal with the pressure that will come with what the Messiah is about to go through, which is him getting lashings and him potentially, leading to him getting killed, right? So, he, before that time came, Peter said, the Messiah said that he's going to get crucified. And, Peter, not thinking about the Messiah's mission, said that, hey, I'm not going to let that happen to you. And he hugged him and he grabbed him and said, let it not be so. And the Messiah, told him later on, like, listen, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crow. And that's what ended up happening. In the midst, when he made that bad oath, he denied him 1 more time after that. And he ended up, the rooster ended up, sounding off. And pretty much that let him know, it reminded him of what was told to him by the Mashiach. So he didn't get put to death or nothing like that, if that's what you was asking, but it's just that he was reminded of what the Mashiach had told him. All right, so talking about the Maccabees. So what was going on at this time, first of all, you have a family, you got a father named Mattathias, and he have 5 sons. So we're gonna read about them, and then I'm gonna just talk about the story. All right. So this is 1 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 1. In those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Joer, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. Well, he had 5 sons: Johanan, called Cadiz, Simon, called Thasi, Judas, who was called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Aboran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Aphas. And so this is this family that's going to rise up against the Greeks. Now the Greeks at this time is ruling over Jerusalem, right? Let me see. Verse 6, it says, "And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, Woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy? and the sanctuary into the hand of strangers, right? So they had these strangers, which is the Greeks, had overtaken Jerusalem, and they had took to the point where they even took the temple, and they started doing unrighteous things in the temple. So let's read about some of those things. All right, so let me skip down. We're going to go back to First Maccabees chapter 1. All right, I'm going to start at verse 10. And it says, "And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes." Now, Antiochus was a king that ended up taking over Jerusalem. And he was a Greek. And he was of the descendants of the generals that ended up taking over the whole earth, right? And so he was continuing on this reign. Let's see. And it says, "Son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief." All right, so you had the children of Israel that, because of everything that was going on in that land and how they was getting oppressed, they felt that they would have a better life if they made a covenant with the Greeks, and the Greeks allowed it. And so they, certain of the children of Israel that was weak, that wasn't serious about their faith and serious about the laws of their fathers, which is the law of Moses, they started to fall away from that. They stopped keeping the laws. All right, let's read some more. Now, when the kingdom was, let me keep reading, verse 15. "And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant." So they made themselves uncircumcised. Now, when it say, at this point where it say they made themselves uncircumcised, it's talking spiritually, but then also with their children, they started to not circumcise their children, the flesh of their children also. So it says they made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant. Forsook the holy covenant, which is the covenant that they made with the Most High. Their forefathers made with the Most High in the beginning, right? "And joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief." So they, now that they did after the ways of the heathen, they also oppressed their people as well. All right, y'all see that? So this is what was going on. Now these things what we're reading right now is what was going on before Mattathias and his sons stood up to go and take back over the land, right? It says, "Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms." So he wanted to go down into Egypt. Now in Egypt, it was other Greeks ruling in that land. All right, so while he was ruling in Jerusalem and other lands, it was the Ptolemies that was ruling in Egypt, right? And this is other Greeks, but they all wasn't together though. They was all separate. So to the point where they was enemies with each other. So when he's getting ready to go down here, he's going to go to battle with them, even though they all Greeks, but they not all together. All right. So I'm gonna fast forward. I'm gonna go into some other stuff. Let's see. Let me go. I'm gonna go down to 1 Maccabees 1 and verse 30. Yeah, I'll go down to 1 Maccabees 1 and verse 30, and it says, or 29. "And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. So they was pretending to be friendly with the children of Israel. And then when the children of Israel let down their guard and started to want to accept these people, what happened was they started to kill them off, right? Because they was doing this in secret. Verse 31, and when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. So they took the city of David and made strong walls. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it. So they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary. All right, and they put a sinful nation that was not of the children of Israel, that did not believe in the keeping the covenant of their fathers. All right, what I'm reading is just the things that led up to that family that we just read about, Mattathias and his sons rising up against these people. Insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her. And so they didn't even recognize this nation now. Right? They didn't recognize their own city that they was born in. And her own children left her. And her saints, so people was fleeing. Now the children of Israel was fleeing from these people and going into the other lands because it became that bad. Right? Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. And as had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. So all should be one people, meaning everybody had to now keep the laws of these Greeks. So especially the children, that's a problem, because when you talk about the children of Israel, we have holy laws. So to keep the customs of the Greeks would mean we would have to worship another god, right? They worship other gods, multiple gods, right? They believe in eating swine. They believe in not circumcising their children. They believed in many, many things that was totally against the Most High. Verse 41, moreover, verse 42, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. So many of the children of Israel also stepped away from their laws. Like it mentioned this earlier too. After he made this a thing where he wanted all his kingdom to be one people and that they should forsake their own laws, even some of the children of Israel that was weak decided to drop their laws and be a part of his kingdom, right? For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days. Now, how can they profane the Sabbath and festival days? We just went over the 10 Commandments.
Try to stop them, but if they don't stop, they can try to murder them.
Well, yeah, they was trying to murder them, yeah, but how can they profane the Sabbath? Like, remember, we just talked about keeping the Sabbath holy. Here, I'm gonna give- Not worship on the Sabbath?
Bible, not respecting Yah.
Right.
Doing wicked things.
Yeah, doing wicked things on the Sabbath, not doing their own will on the Sabbath. What you had?
Not congregate.
Of course. So they couldn't come together on the Sabbath, stuff like that, right? Right? Just keep that in mind. This is what it's talking about. So they forsaken the Sabbath. Let me go back. Verse 46, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. So they were sacrificing swine's flesh and unclean beasts. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So that was the goal. Antiochus wanted them to forget their laws and change all the ordinances. He wanted those people to be fornicators like them, engage in idolatry, and eat unclean things, and so forth. Leave their children uncircumcised. And when you think about a physical circumcision, in this, with what he's requesting, they will also be spiritually uncircumcised because they wouldn't be keeping the laws of Yah. Right? Verse 49, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. So this the pressure that was put on the children of Israel. If they wasn't going to do after the laws of the King Antiochus, they was going to die. All right? Now that we understand what the children of Israel was going through at that time, let's read some of the things that led to them going into pretty much this family that we just read about rising up and taking over the land again, right? Let's see. Verse 16. I'm going to go to, this is 1 Maccabees 2 and verse 16. I'll start at 14. It says, then Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore because they saw what was going on, right? And in the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. All right, so what he was going to make them sacrifice was unclean animals upon the altar or to another god. And when many of Israel came unto them, Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattathias, on this wise, thou art a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore, come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou shalt be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. So he wanted Mattathias and his sons to step away from the laws as well. All right, so when now let's see what happened with him and his sons. Let's see what they do, because this is important. This is where things start to change for the children of Israel. Remember, they're getting killed for not keeping, the children of Israel was getting killed for not keeping the laws of this king. If they circumcised their sons, they got killed. If they kept the Sabbath, they got killed. Things like that. If they didn't eat unclean food, they got killed, right? If they didn't worship idols, they got killed. All the things, that's an abomination. So let's see what he do. Let me get back. Let me slide back to it. Start back at 19. It says, then Mattathias answered and spake with, no, you know what? Let me slide back up. Verse 18. Now therefore come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen have done, yea, and the men of Judah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shalt thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, and thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him and fall away everyone from the religion of their fathers and gave consent to his commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. Elohim forbid that we should forsake the law and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our religion, either on the right hand or the left. Now, when he had left speaking these words, now Mattathias told him that we're not going to worship this. We're not going to worship your gods and keep your laws, right? It says, verse 23, now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing, when Mattathias saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled. Neither could he forbear to show his anger, according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. So one of the Jews that decided to worship another god and offer up a sacrifice, Mattathias killed him on the altar when he was getting ready to offer the sacrifice, because he was angry that he was seeing people fall away. He was so angry in seeing what was going on with the children of Israel. All right, some falling away, some getting killed for remaining righteous. So now all of that is in him. And when he see this Jew in his sight worshiping another god by offering up a sacrifice, he kill him on the altar. All right. Got a little more. We almost done. It says, verse 25, also the king's commissioner who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt he zealously for the law of Elohim, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri, the son of Salam. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whoever is zealous of the law and maintains the covenant, let him follow me. What do y'all know what zealous mean? What does zealous mean?
Whoever respects the law.
Say that again.
Respect.
It's got something to do with respect, yeah. Excited for the law. But yeah, it's definitely got something to do with respect. Having love and respect for the law. So yeah. Yeah. So definitely. So yep. Whoever still wants to obey the law. This is what he's saying. Whoever still wants to obey the law, come and follow me. So now it's an uprising. This is the start of the uprising where the Mattathias and his sons decide to go to war with these Greeks.
So he's asking who wants to sing praise and
Praise Yah.
the people who joins him, they still praise.
Yeah, they still believe in keeping the law. Absolutely. All right, let's read a little more, and then we're gonna wrap it up. In verse 28, so he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there. So those that still wanted to keep the laws, they went and dwelt with Mattathias and his sons. Both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because affliction increased sore upon them. Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of David that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were going down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hereto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, let us all die in our innocency. So this is other Jews that was still serious about the law, not necessarily Mattathias. I'm reading this to show how serious these people were. They was willing to die for their faith and their belief in still keeping Yah's laws. All right, this is other people. This is not Mattathias and his sons, because they didn't get overtaken like this. So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them, talking about the Greeks slewing the Jews, with their wives and children and their cattle, to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. All right, so now this is where they decide to start fighting against or defending themselves against the heathen on the Sabbath. All right, because of what is taking place. These heathen know they lost to the point where they're willing to fight them on the Sabbath. And with them fighting them on the Sabbath, they feel like they'll have the upper hand because Jews wasn't willing to fight on the Sabbath. And so they decided to start fighting on the Sabbath. Now, all these things led to Mattathias and his sons overtaking the land again, taking the temple and rededicating the temple back to the Most High. So once they went through these different battles, it eventually led to them overtaking the land, or the whole land, and then overtaking the temple again, cleaning the temple up, taking all the unclean things, the unclean sacrifices that had been made on the altar, and they literally went through and cleaned it up and built a wall up and rededicated the temple back to the Most High, right? And then they started this 8-day feast that we was just in the middle of. And so that's the history of that in short, all right? All right, so y'all understand what Hanukkah is somewhat about? All right, so we got our hallelujahs. Now that story is way bigger than that. We don't, that's a whole, the story of the Maccabees. I mean, it's 2 books just in this Bible alone, but it's like 4 books to this thing. So we'll never be able to just go over that in one sitting. But it's a pretty good story, though. All right, so let's do our let's do our hallelujahs. Yo, who want to count? You want to count? All right, come on. All right. All right. So on the count of 3, let's give some good. Let's on the count of 3, let's give some good hallelujahs. All right. Let's make it count. On the count of 3. 1,
2, 3. Hallelujah!
All right. That's good. Let's see if we can get some better ones than that. That was pretty good. Got 2 more.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right, that's good. One more. Let's make that one better. Let's make this last one better than the last 2. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3.
All right. I like that. All right. Hallelujah. All right. That's the end of our lesson for today. We will be back shortly with praise and worship, followed by today's main lesson. All right. Shabbat shalom. Hope to see you all in here.